Finishing our month off here on December 1st is 2025's representative for this monumental Ani-vember. Dealing with Mikadono sisters is a breeze, a show whose title is not reflective of its content. Why? Because the show is a fun and wholesome dive into a unique found family dynamic, and the localized title sucks. But that's just me. I'm writing this review right after my second viewing of the show, and I gotta say, it's still a wonderful time even after immediately binge watching it following the first watch through. For what it's worth, this is a clear-cut and honest show, giving a solid perspective on the tribulations of a found family learning to, well, be a family, and forms this environment of a closing-in emotional connection. For as typical as the story will find itself in stereotypical rom-com shenanigans, it doesn't lose focus on what it sets out to do, telling a narrative about a family bonding. And I can't fault a show that knows what it's about, and even more so, one that strays from the normal routine to deliver a stunning tale of love made with love. The son of a late prominent actress, Yu, is taken in by a man who once knew her. Though she was a dominant model of talent, he is anything but, having no acting ability or athletic skills, average grades, and is just generally clumsy. In his new environment, he meets the Mikadono sisters, Kazuki, a star thespian, Miko, a tough-as-nails martial artist, and Miwa, a prodigious shogi player. Overwhelmed by their presence and general outlook of talent, he initially struggles to get settled in as he begins living with the thorny trio, but as time goes on, proving his hidden knack for housework in this home of messy geniuses, he manages to eke out a little respect from the girls as his unassuming, kindly, innocent stature begins pecking away at their preconceived notions of ability, worth, and possibly even love. What's in it in the long run for the young Yu in his efforts to break the sisters' walls down? And what's to become of these flustered geniuses encountering a persistent mediocrity for the first time in their once secluded lives? It's funny that nearly everything about the show is either cliched or predictable, from the character arcs to the story beats to even humor, yet it's not felt in this manufactured or illegitimate way. There is a fresh means of conveying the progression of these events in a natural and meaningful way, and that's through our main character. Yu, in being this clumsy and frankly bad at most things person, has a way of standing out through his genuine want of a family and pleasure of just being useful. He's a refreshing lead, taking the reins not by having all the answers, but rather a strong commitment to his role as a supporter and friend. So when we encounter a story arc like the tough girls want to be cuter, it's met with a gleeful and somewhat kind and naive support from a guy who wants nothing more than for someone else to be happy with themselves. And it's not a one-way street because Nico will eventually meet Yu to his level and open up to him in that same genuine way. This works out for all of the girls, and is never half-assed. In the midst of the humor, which is funny, and the romance, which is cute, at the end of the day, Yu and the sisters do find themselves connected in a closer and warmer bond. Not as this petty love square, but as a unit that really care for each other. They can be smug with each other, berate each other's faults and flaws, joke with one another in a harmless but still absurd way only siblings can, and lift one up when they feel crappy. And it's built through this series of Yu helping out the girls' situations in his very unique brand of support. There's a ton of layers to Yu's character and his relationship with the sisters, and when you learn the tragedy behind Yu's talents and lack thereof, it opens up the theming of his want for family much more broadly, with a tinge of sadness in the light. And I can't emphasize how heartfelt it all comes across. The sisters themselves are just as wonderful. Set aside the fact that I staunchly love tomboys, and the fact that there are 3 of them only makes my opinion look a bit sus, but they really are written fantastically. Kazuki, as the eldest, holds herself to a high degree, and yet has the showings of trying to tackle more nuanced ideals of herself to both challenge her range and grow to know this feeling of love she's longed for. Nico fights in a very traditional sense, and when she has the opportunity to explore more of her feminine side, that pushes her to break tradition and finally find a path she can forge for herself, while also staying within her world of martial arts. Miwa can cook up some devious shogi strategies, but she's still a kid who wants to have a connection to her sisters and idolizes them to a dangerously self-destructive degree, and is heartbreaking learning about her reasoning to keep going down the path she's going. All of these characters pull at a familiar human string of isolation and loneliness, and there's a comforting warmth that stems from the fact that they'll still have each other, and find this love amongst themselves that can't easily be strained or tainted. one that will last for years to come. And that's where the evolution of these different anime shines and stays consistent. The numerous changes in storytelling, animation techniques, thematic presence, and even marketing trends and demographic honing makes the anime over the years the most energized parts of the culture and industry. It's an industry that one year can gush over the enormous might of giant robots, then another the gentle quest of societal demonstration, to then return to more awesome and inspiring mechs. It's a culture that lifts up the great tales of the past and the revolutionary stories of the new, be it about a classic feudal story reimagined or a new age grunge band trying to make it in the world. But when it comes to consistency, all of these shows have the commonality of being character stories. These are tales that engage you on the nature and personification of humanity, and the art that comes from them. You learn about comedy from silly girls telling stories, you learn tranquility from a man analyzing spiritual bugs, and you learn about passion from a bunch of dorks drawing for fun. Even in the bad shows, there's that little ray of an insightful direction that wasn't fully met, but had a speck of human creativity and effort put into it that they aren't completely devoid of significance. What may not be my favorite could be to someone else, and vice versa. In watching all of these shows, I walk away with a renewed idealization that anime is chock full of love. There's a love in the craft, a love in the writing and animation, and a love in telling a story that may or may not need telling, but one that brings delight to someone regardless. I can't pretend this was an easy month or even year for me on a personal level, but in watching these shows, I found a small bit of hope and care in places I never considered to have the capability of retaining solace. And there's something consolatory about that you can find hope anywhere, even if it doesn't seem like it. I'm glad I could review all of these shows, and even more, I'm glad I could share them with you, either as a reminder or a first exposure, because history needs to be studied and remembered. And anime has a history worth remembering. Thanks for joining me these past 31 days for this crazy adventure of 3 decades of anime, and I hope I gave you a good recommendation at least once in this anime-filled month that makes you say it was all worth it. As for dealing with Mikadono sisters, there's nothing short of a wholesome time that's clear on where it stands as a tale about rediscovering familial love in the strangest of places. But there's nothing strange about this. It's a show I love and one I can't recommend enough. Go out and see it because, like the sisters, it's a genius act that fights on to make a hell of a play.